Hi everybody, Charles here from Backroads Living. Could somebody tell me what happened? Because I really don't know. Where did all the rioting go? What happened? Hang in there and we'll get right on into it. If we recall, back in the start of this year, when right after, let me just put it like that, right after this pandemic started, there were some things that took place that just was unprecedented in the United States. There was riots that broke out and began, and it was like non-stop. In the spring, we saw the riots begin with the death of George Floyd. That's where it started. This took place in Minneapolis, Minnesota. He died while he was in the possession of the city police there, and the policemen were charged with his murder. And when the verdict came down and they did not charge the policeman with murder, riots broke out like crazy. I mean, things fell apart quick. And they went on for months following his death. It was just like crazy. And riots spread all over the United States from that. And then it wasn't long that there were more riots, because there were more police killings. And we're going to look into those. I wrote these down. I want to keep up with them. We all saw that on TV. It was spread all over TV. Every major news channel, every minor news channel reported the death of George Floyd, because it was caught on video. People had their cell phones out and they recorded this thing taking place when he was being arrested by the police there in Minneapolis. And they recorded the ambulance coming and picking him up, the whole 9 yards. There was nothing missed in it. And every radio station reported as a murder by the police, even before they heard the jury or before they heard anything. Everybody just took it on themselves to be the judge and jury, and they passed sentence on the policeman before anything ever was said. Now, whether the judgment was correct or not, I don't know. I just know what the judgment said, and they did not convict these men of murder, and that triggered the riots. And it actually was kind of like a turning point, I think, in America, because we've never really seen riots like that before. No, we've seen some protests along, some peaceful protests, but we've never seen rioting like that before in America. And it just I think it shook a lot of people. And it had a lot of people really worried, and with real reasons, because there was a lot of things took place during these riots. And one of the things here, let's see, in May, after the death of George Floyd, right after his death and the conviction, we find that the protests started, and then they were taken over by rioters. And they actually went in and ran the police out of the police station there and set the police station on fire and burned it. So, I mean, it was pretty serious stuff. You know, it wasn't like just standing around throwing rocks or throwing bottles or standing around shaking your fist at somebody. These people were pretty violent. That got up there in Minneapolis and took over that place. And within about, I think it was a week after George Floyd had passed there, that we saw riots in about 30 cities across the United States because of his death. And, you know, these started out, most of them, as peaceful protests. That was the thing about it. They actually started out as peaceful protests, but somehow or the other they were taken over by other people and turned into riots. And they become very violent. So this was all happening in May. Denver also experienced riots from this, Denver, Colorado. Nothing like that they'd ever seen before. Seattle saw massive rioting. And that was where the protesters actually took over 6 blocks of Seattle and renamed it. It became, I think that's the one that became the autonomous zone there, and they just kind of became their own city for a while. Just kind of crazy. Things got real crazy right after that. And then in June, we go from May right on into June, and then in June we see that the National Guard had to be called out in Seattle to try to quiet this stuff down a little bit. They were also called out in Atlanta, Georgia in June. They had riots going on there. Los Angeles and Hollywood, California, with severe riots going on. They had to call the National Guard out during June for these things. So then what happened in July? In July, there was more rioting. It was just like one right after the other, just boom, 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 every month. Los Angeles experienced more riots with clashes between the National Guard and the rioters, between police and the rioters. Portland, you remember Portland? Who could forget Portland, Oregon? Oh my goodness, it became a hot spot in July. It just exploded. The police and National Guard there had to, engage rioters there because of all the destruction that was going on. And again, most of these started out from peaceful protest. People who were protesting peacefully, and then all of a sudden it just became violent. Other people got involved and kind of took over the protest. Then in August, we had Jacob Blake was killed by the police in Kenosha, Wisconsin. And when that happened, nobody cared whether it was justified or not. I mean, that was just, it didn't matter at that point. There was so much going on and so much hatred and so much talk about police brutality and race killings and all this stuff by that time that it was just like a short fuse on a big keg of dynamite, buddy. And when Jacob Blake was killed, that set off more protests that turned into more rioting, and buddy, they just basically destroyed Kenosha, Wisconsin. The rioters just basically destroyed that city. It was just terrible what took place there. Then there was police shootings in Chicago in August that set off more rioting. At one point, the mayor of Chicago had all the drawbridges raised so the rioters couldn't cross the river to try to confine them into one area. It was just, it just kept on and on and on. It was like there was never a let up. Every time you turned on the TV, this past year in 2020, seemed like there was rioting going on somewhere that had originally started with some kind of peaceful protest. Now, there was a lot of people that literally wanted to do peaceful protest, but they were hijacked. Every time that there was a peaceful protest took place, they were hijacked, and they turned into riots. So then in September, let's move on into September, we find that Portland moved on September the 1st. Portland experienced its 95th straight day of riots. Can you imagine that? Living in Portland, Oregon, and having riots every single day for 95 days in a row. It just crazy. And then, here we go again in my home state in Kentucky, in September. Everybody remembers Breonna Taylor. She was killed up there in Louisville in a raid. She was in the wrong place at the wrong time and got killed in the process of this. According to police records and according to the trials, that was what took place. I'm just saying what they said. And this set off another round of riots in Louisville that shook that city. It was really bad, not just Louisville alone, but there was more protests for that started across the country again, in several states across the country, and they turned into riots also. And it was just, it was just more. It was just like pouring gas on on an already lit fire, buddy. All this stuff going on. It's crazy. And then when Walter Wallace was shot by the Philadelphia police in October, so we move into the next month, there was another shooting, and it all started again. More peaceful protests that turned into more riots. And it was just, just all run amok. It was just all over, starting all over again. One couldn't die down till another one started up. You couldn't go from one month to the next without somebody being killed by the police, and then people wanting to protest it, and it turning into a riot, not just in one city usually, but spread across the United States of America. And it was just crazy. And here we were. Now, my wife and I, we were doing this channel in September and October, and I was looking at this stuff along with many other YouTubers and preppers, people that have been following this pretty close, and people that have been prepping for years. And we were all saying, watch out for November. Oh my goodness. November is going to be a month that, like never before, when this election takes place, you better be hunkered down. And we all said that. And we all missed it. I don't know what happened. I don't know where all the riots went. I don't know where all the protests went. Because November was just set, it was set to be the granddaddy of them all. And I'm not discouraged of it. I'm not disappointed. Oh, praise the Lord that they've stopped, I'm just confused. Not disappointed, just confused. I thought that November would be the most violent month of all the months of the year because of the election. So let me ask you a question. Since nothing happened in November, we went from May through October of the most violent riots that the country has ever seen. Every month there was an explosion of riots throughout this country in cities across the United States. People were killed, businesses were burned to the ground, homes were burned to the ground, businesses were looted, people were beat and maimed, and I mean, it was just awful from May through October. Terrible. And then all of a sudden, it's just like somebody reached over and turned the water faucet off when November got here. So here's some questions. Did police shootings suddenly cease? Has the police not killed anybody since November the 1st? Did racially motivated violence come to an end? Or so that people would claim that would be racially motivated? Did all that come to an end? Did the justice system somehow evolve into a different system that is different, so different now that people love it now and don't hate it like they did when they were calling to defund the police? Did everybody just finally agree to settle their differences peacefully and go on their merry way? I don't know. I don't have a clue what happened. But if you have a clue, or if you have an idea of what you really think happened, be sure and leave us a comment in the comment section below. I'd love to hear what you think. So with that being said, if you enjoy our videos, be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video. That's how you help us on YouTube. And we pray that the Lord bless and keep you until we see you again. And until then, we'll see you in the next video.